You are looking live at Hollywood and Vine, and I'm Pat O'Brien, and you are?
Court McCowan.
Court McCowan. We are together again, partners, not in crime, but in information.
Yes.
This is.
Yes, I'm just agreeing with you.
When I ask you a question, you'll answer it. Okay. It's called everything all the time. I miss Glenn Fry. You know, we named the show kind of for him because of Life in the Fast Lane, but last night I was thinking about all the people that have passed. I miss him.
Yeah.
I miss the Eagles.
It's sad to think there's some of those bands that are never going to be gone. I mean, you know, there was always that possibility that was always held for the Beatles reunion. Then after John was killed, that was gone, and it's just, I don't know. It's sad to think about.
Paul McCartney told me, when I asked him, I said, "Did you guys ever consider getting back together?" And we were just sitting around in New York, and Paul said, "Yeah, the four of us got together once at Apple headquarters."
Wow.
And no lawyers, no accountants, nobody, just George, John, Paul, and Ringo. And we talked about it because they had $1 billion, incredible offers. So went around the room. Paul wanted to do it, and Ringo really was going to go with the vote. George, off and on. So they talked about it, he said, for an hour. And finally got around to John. You know what he said? What would be the point? Be more famous? Which, by the way, is so John Lennon, you know? And kind of wish we had him around today. We have a good show today. In a few minutes, we're going to talk to a guy gentleman who trains policemen on how to be real policemen in the community.
I think the key word is they're real policemen, because I think more and more...
They're not all bad.
They're not all bad.
But there are some bad ones, there are some bad announcers.
Yes.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
And bad publicists and bad whatever. No, there's not. Sue McGahee, he's great. But you're right, there's something bad everywhere, right?
I mean, I think you've got to look at, it's just like you can't generalize people as, in any particular way. And I think you look at some, there's so many police that have that, and I don't want to say it's that God complex, but it's that power trip. They have that power trip about them. And, you were sharing with me earlier about, you went up to an officer and you stuck out your hand and you said... I
said, thank you for your service.
And what
said,
is it?
Stand back.
Stand back.
This is like in a gas station.
Yeah, and then on the other hand, there's so many guys that are just amazingly great people.
98% are. And we'll talk to Steve Fazio about that later. Yeah. I want to talk about the Olympics for a minute because we're getting down to it, and the water is probably the biggest issue in Rio, and they're about a month away. The amount of manure in the water and viruses is 1.7 million times what's out here on California beaches.
It's the most disgusting thing, and they were actually, I saw a report on it the other day, where there's actually raw sewage that actually just flows out.
Only 14% of the homes in Rio de Janeiro, Ipanema beaches are polluted. Anyway, only 14% have processed sewage. Is that a word?
Yeah.
So they dump all their sewage in the water, and they said they were going to clean it up. How do you do that? Think about the swimmers. The rowing guys went out and they're practicing the water, and they had to take their bottles of water, bottled water, and pour bleach all over them before they drank them.
Yeah. Well, there
might be a drop of.
They were practicing sailing the other day in the bay, and the boats were coming out, and the boats were being stained by oil slicks and the pollution, to the point where some of the sailors actually are having to put nose clips over their nose and masks over their, so that the water doesn't get in their mouth. One of the guys that's a sailor actually has holes in his legs from skin disease that he's gotten from just the water splashing on his legs.
And these aren't just the extremes. This is going on a lot. Now, a lot of the golfers have... Jordan
Spieth, number 2 player in the world, just pulled out of the Olympics. So now you've got...
number 1 now?
You've got Jason Day.
Yeah,
Jason Day pulled out. Rory McIlroy's pulled out. Dustin Johnson pulled out. Now Jordan Spieth. Hideki Matsuyama.
Hey, good time for Tiger to come back.
Yeah, perfect time. I mean, I think he's like 450 in the world. He's probably up next. I mean, everybody's pulling out, and they're pulling out a lot for the Zika virus.
Right, because they'll be outside. It's winter there that time of year, so the temperatures aren't in the hundreds, but it will be warm, and there's little puddles all over the place. It has mosquitoes in them. It's a disaster. Meantime, NBC has had more sales than any year of the Olympics.
Wow.
So people love the Olympics. They love seeing them and seeing the stories. And NBC's fair. They'll cover all this stuff. And it happens before every Olympics. Like Sochi had... it was too cold, I think, or something happened.
Well, I remember,
and then China the air was so bad they could barely breathe.
I remember when it was in Russia and they had all the bribes and all the stuff that was going on. I mean, there's always a problem at the Olympics because there is corruption, of course. I mean, it's business,
Brazil has no government.
Yeah, so I mean, you've got that. But to have an Olympics where the conditions are so bad that you stand to have a life-threatening disease from competing in the Olympics, you've got to understand why some of these golfers are saying, look, I want to have kids one day. If I go down there and get this...
Very few women who are planning to get pregnant are going.
No, exactly. And I don't think and a lot of the men who are planning on having families in the future are not planning on going. Now, it's one of those things where it's sad to see that they've had a long time to prepare for this.
Yeah, it's not like it just popped up on.
No, it's not like they found out last month that they got tours coming through.
But they have no money, they have no personnel, and their water basically is full of
sewage,
poop. We come back. Steve Fazio will join us. We'll talk about law enforcement, get into all that for a couple segments. He knows what he's talking about, and we'll be back right after this.